Commander Jiho Kim stared at the communication screen with wide eyes. The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the research station Prometheus. Something terrible was happening to Earth. "Sir, we're getting emergency signals from home," said Officer So-Young Park. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Multiple alien ships have appeared near Earth. They're huge." Jiho felt his stomach drop. The signals coming from Earth were broken and full of static. Through the noise, he could hear screaming voices and explosion sounds. Then he saw them on the long-range sensors, massive black ships that looked like giant daggers floating in space around his home planet. "How many ships?" Jiho asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Over 300, sir. They just appeared out of nowhere. No warning, no message, nothing." So-Young's hands moved quickly over her controls. Seoul is under attack. The aliens are dropping some kind of poison gas over the cities. Jiho watched in horror as the reports came in. The alien ships, the Vortak Empire they called themselves, had surrounded Earth completely. They weren't trying to talk or make demands. They were simply killing everyone. Lieutenant Minho, Lee ran onto the bridge with a data pad in his hands. "Commander, the aliens are using weapons we've never seen before. They're releasing tiny machines that eat everything alive. The oceans are turning black. The forests are dying." Through the main screen, Jiho could see Earth getting darker. The beautiful blue and green planet he had grown up on was changing color. Gray and black spots spread across the continents like a disease. 16 billion people lived on Earth. His family was down there somewhere. "Try to contact the defense forces," Jiho ordered. Someone must be fighting back. But the news got worse with each passing hour. The space defense ships were destroyed in minutes. The orbital stations went silent one by one. The alien weapons were too advanced, too powerful. Humanity had no chance to fight back. "Sir, incoming message from Earth Defense Command," So-Young announced. Her face was pale and tears ran down her cheeks. The screen flickered and showed an old man in a military uniform. Behind him, explosions lit up the sky. "This is General Harrison. Final broadcast from Earth Defense Command. The alien attack came without warning. They offered no terms, no negotiation. They simply began killing every living thing on our planet." The general's voice was calm, but Jiho could see the pain in his eyes. "To any human colonies receiving this message, remember what they did to us. Remember Earth. Remember that they showed us no mercy when they had the power to destroy us." The transmission was breaking up. The aliens call themselves the Vortak Empire. They use weapons that consume organic matter. They turned our home into a dead rock in less than 3 days. Don't let our deaths be meaningless. Don't forget what they took from us. The screen went black. Earth had fallen silent forever. Jiho stood frozen as the terrible truth sank in. His parents, his sister, his childhood friends, they were all gone. Everyone he had ever known on Earth was dead. The planet where humanity had lived for thousands of years was now a lifeless ball of rock floating in space. "Commander," Minho said quietly, "the aliens are broadcasting a message to all human colonies." The screen lit up again, showing a tall alien with gray skin and black eyes. It spoke in perfect English with a cold, emotionless voice. "Inferior species of the planet Terra, your homeworld serves as an example of Vortak power. You will surrender all colonies to Vortak rule within 30 of your days, or you will share the same fate as your origin world." The alien continued without any feeling in its voice. "Resistance is pointless. Negotiation is unnecessary. You will obey or die. This is the only warning you will receive." The message ended, leaving the bridge in deadly silence. Jiho looked around at his crew. All of them had family on Earth. All of them had just lost everything they cared about. But as Jiho stared at the place where Earth used to shine bright in the darkness of space, he felt something cold and hard growing in his chest. It wasn't just sadness or fear. It was anger, pure, burning anger that made his hands shake. "They think they won," Jiho said slowly. "They think killing our families will make us afraid." He turned to face his crew. Every person on the bridge was looking at him with the same expression, grief mixed with rage. They had all lost their world, but they were still alive. The Vorthak had made one big mistake. They left witnesses. Joe continued, his voice getting stronger. They wanted to scare us into giving up, but they don't understand humans at all. So Young wiped the tears from her face and stood straighter. What are your orders, Commander? Joe looked back at the dead planet one last time. Contact every human colony. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is gone, but we're not finished yet. The Vorthak Empire had just learned what happens when you take everything away from humans. They were about to discover that some lessons come with a very high price. 6 months had passed since Earth died, and Captain Dongwook Choi could barely recognize his mining colony anymore. Kepler 442b had been a quiet place with 50,000 miners and their families. Now over 2 million refugees crowded into every available space, living in tents, storage rooms, and hastily built shelters that stretched across the rocky landscape. Dongwook walked to the overcrowded medical center, where Dr. Eun Ji-yu worked without rest. She looked exhausted, her medical uniform stained with blood and sweat. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept properly in weeks. How many did we lose today? Dongwook asked quietly. 47, Eun Ji replied without looking up from her patient. Some from sickness, some from hunger, but most from the grief plague. The grief plague wasn't a real disease. It was what they called it when people simply gave up living. Refugees would sit staring at nothing, refusing to eat or drink until they died. They had seen too much death and lost too much hope. The children are the worst, Eun Ji continued, her voice breaking slightly. They keep asking when they can go home. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that home doesn't exist anymore? Dongwook had no answer. His own daughter had been visiting Earth when the attack happened. Every night, he saw her face in his dreams, calling for him to save her. But he couldn't save anyone back then. Maybe he couldn't save anyone now either. Lieutenant Hyun-woo Nam approached with a worried expression. Sir, the food supplies are running dangerously low. If the agricultural ships don't arrive from New Eden Colony soon, we'll have to cut rations again. Again? Dongwook felt tired just thinking about it. People are already getting sick from hunger. I know, sir, but what choice do we have? Dongwook was about to answer when Engineer Subin Ko burst into the room. Her face was excited, almost hopeful, an expression nobody had seen much lately. Captain, you need to come see what we built in the lower mining tunnels, she said. Right now. Curious, Dongwook followed Subin deep underground, past the normal mining equipment to a section he rarely visited. What he found there made him stop and stare. The empty tunnels had been turned into a secret workshop. Mining drills had been modified into weapons. Excavation charges were being turned into bombs. Former miners worked alongside engineers and scientists, all focused on the same goal. Sergeant Jae-min looked up from where he was teaching a group of civilians how to use the modified equipment. We're not going down without a fight, Captain. How many people know about this? Dongwook asked. About 300 so far, Jae-min replied. All volunteers. Families who lost everything on Earth. They want revenge. Intelligence Officer Yi-Jin Shin emerged from behind a communication station. Captain, I've been in contact with 17 other human colonies. They're all doing the same thing, organizing resistance groups, building weapons, sharing information. She activated a holographic display showing the known galaxy. Red dots mark human colonies, while blue dots showed Vorthak control systems. Look at this pattern. The Vorthak think they've already won. They've spread their forces thin, expecting easy surrender. They're not even guarding their supply routes properly, added Subin. Their ships pass through our territory like they own it. They think we're too broken to fight back. Dongwook studied the display carefully. The Vorthak were powerful, but they were also overconfident. They had made the same mistake that many conquerors made throughout history. They underestimated their enemy. What's our advantage, he asked. Yi-Jin smiled for the first time in months. They think like an empire. Big fleets, direct attacks, overwhelming force. But we think like survivors. We know how to hide, how to strike fast, how to disappear before they can hit back. And we know something they don't, Jae-min added, We know what it feels like to lose everything. That makes us dangerous in ways they can't understand. Dr. Eun-ji had followed them into the tunnels and was looking around with amazement. This is what you've been doing while I've been watching people die of hopelessness? This is hope, Dong-wook said firmly. Not the false hope that everything will go back to normal. Real hope, the kind that comes from fighting back. Over the following weeks, the secret resistance grew. Miners became saboteurs. Scientists became weapons designers. Teachers became spies. Even some of the grief-plagued victims began to recover when they learned they could do something to hurt their enemies. Young-Soo Park, a computer engineer who had lost his wife and son on Earth, created viruses that could infect alien computer systems. Every time I write code, I think about my family, he said. The Vort hack took them from me. Now I'll take something from the Vort hack. The resistance cells communicated through hidden networks, sharing plans and resources. They learned about Vort hack patrol schedules, supply convoys, and weak points in their defenses. Most importantly, they learned that they weren't alone. 38 colonies have active resistance movements now, Yi Jin reported during a secret meeting. The Vort hack expect us to surrender in fear. Instead, we're getting stronger. Dong-wook looked around at the determined faces surrounding him. These people had lost their world, their families, their old lives. But they had found something new, a purpose that burned brighter than their grief. The Vort hack wanted to break us, he said. They wanted to teach us that resistance is hopeless. But they've taught us something else instead. They've taught us that when humans have nothing left to lose, we become the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The scattered remnants of humanity were scattered no more. Lieutenant Bo-R-A Kong crawled through the narrow air vent above the Vort hack communication station, moving as quietly as a shadow. For 3 months, she had worked as a cleaning worker in the alien facility, mopping floors and emptying trash while secretly studying their security systems. Today, all that patience would finally pay off. Through the metal grating below her, she could see 3 Vort hack officers standing around a holographic display. Their gray skin looked cold under the blue lights, and their black eyes showed no emotion as they discussed human colonies like pieces on a game board. Bo-R-A activated her tiny translation device and listened carefully to their conversation. The Terra species shows expected psychological breakdown, said the tallest Vort hack commander. Resistance activity has dropped to acceptable levels. Our forces can be moved to the Andorian sector for the next phase of expansion. Confirmed, replied another officer. The humans are behaving exactly as our scientists predicted. Grief followed by despair, then complete surrender. Their emotional weakness makes them easy to control. Increase patrols in the outer colonies by 20%, then redeploy the main battle fleets, ordered the commander. The Terra species no longer requires significant military attention. Bo-R-A felt her jaw clench with anger. They thought humans were broken and defeated. The arrogance in their voices made her want to scream, but she forced herself to stay quiet and focused on her mission. She carefully inserted the data extraction device that engineer Young-Soo Park had created. It looked like a small metal spider and moved along the walls like a real insect. The device attached itself to the main communication hub and began copying everything: fleet positions, supply routes, defensive weaknesses, future attack plans. Within hours, every human resistance cell in the galaxy would have complete information about Vort hack military operations. The aliens had no idea that their most secure facility had been completely compromised. Meanwhile, on the agricultural colony of New Eden, Dr. Hyrin Lee worked in her secret laboratory deep beneath the grain storage facilities. She had been head of biological research at Seoul University before the attack, but now she used her knowledge for a very different purpose. Perfect, she whispered as she examined the sample under her microscope. After months of careful genetic modification, she had created something beautiful and terrible, a bacteria that would eat the polymer compounds used in Vort hack ship hulls. The bacteria looked harmless, like tiny dots floating in clear liquid. But once it was introduced into a Vort hack manufacturing facility, it would spread through their entire production system like wildfire. Their mighty warships would simply fall apart in space. How fast will it work? Asked her assistant, Dr. Chong Minyu, who had lost his entire family on Earth. 3 weeks from initial contact to total structural failure, Hyrin replied with a cold smile. And the best part, it will look like a manufacturing defect. They'll blame their own engineers. Across the galaxy, Admiral Suk-Jin Hong coordinated the growing resistance from his mobile command ship Retribution. The ship was hidden in a dense asteroid field, constantly moving to avoid Vorthack patrols. His bridge had become the secret heart of human rebellion. Phase 1 is complete, he announced to the holographic images of resistance leaders from dozens of colonies. Every major human settlement now has weapons production capability, mining equipment converted to military use, chemical plants producing explosives, research stations developing new attack methods. Captain Dongwook Choi appeared on one of the screens, his face harder and more determined than had been months ago. My people are ready, Admiral. We've identified 12 Vorthack supply convoys that pass through our sector every month. Good, Admiral Suk-Jin replied. Remember, we don't want prisoners, and we don't want survivors who can report back. Complete destruction, no witnesses. Dr. Chong Min-Yu's image flickered on another screen. Admiral, my physics team has developed something special. We call it the gravity bomb. One device can crush an entire Vorthack base into a ball of twisted metal. Outstanding, the Admiral said. How many can you produce? 50 per month, if we have materials. You'll have whatever you need. Intelligence Officer Eugene Shin had been quietly listening to the conversation, but now she spoke up with excitement in her voice. Admiral, we received the data from BORA's infiltration mission. The intelligence is incredible. Complete Vorthack fleet positions, supply schedules, communication codes, everything. She activated a galaxy-wide display, showing Vorthack positions in red and human colonies in blue. Look at this. They've moved most of their heavy ships away from human space. They think we're no longer a threat. Admiral Suk-Jin studied the display with growing satisfaction. They've given us exactly what we need, opportunity. How long before we can coordinate simultaneous strikes across all sectors? 2 weeks, Eugene replied. Every resistance cell will be ready. And the psychological warfare campaign? The Admiral asked. Already underway, said Dongwook with a grim smile. We're leaving messages at every attack site. Simple words in their language. Remember Earth. Let them know that every death, every destroyed ship, every ruined base is payback for our world. Dr. Hyrin Lee's image appeared on the communication screen. Admiral, my biological weapons are ready for deployment. Once we introduce them into the supply chain, every Vorthack ship will become a death trap. The Admiral looked around at all the faces on his screens. Scientists, miners, farmers, teachers, all united by loss and driven by the need for justice. The Vorthack wanted to teach us about superior technology and overwhelming force, he said slowly. They're about to learn what human creativity can accomplish when it's fueled by pure hatred. The awakening of human wrath had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong came when 17 Vorthack supply convoys vanished within the same week. No distress signals, no wreckage, no survivors. The massive ships simply disappeared from all sensors as if they had never existed in the first place. Commander Taehyun Lim watched from his cloaked observation ship as another Vorthack supply convoy approached the asteroid field. His team of former miners had spent weeks preparing this trap, using their knowledge of space rocks and gravity to create the perfect ambush. Charges are set, reported Specialist Na-Young Song from her position on a nearby asteroid. When their ships pass through the corridor, we'll bring down half the asteroid field on top of them. Remember, Taehyun said quietly into his communication device, no survivors. They can't report back what happened here. The Vorthack convoy entered the narrow passage between the asteroids, their ships moving in perfect formation. They had no idea that dozens of humans were watching them from hidden positions throughout the field. Now, Taehyun whispered. The explosions lit up space like tiny stars. Carefully placed charges sent massive rocks tumbling through the convoy formation. The alien ships tried to escape, but there was nowhere to go. Within minutes, all 12 vessels were crushed under millions of tons of stone and metal. Clean sweep, Na-Young reported. No escape pods, no emergency beacons. It will look like they flew into an unstable asteroid field. This scene played out across the galaxy as human-resistant cells struck at Vorthack targets with deadly precision. They had learned to fight like ghosts, appearing without warning, striking hard, then vanishing before anyone could respond. On the industrial world of Titan 7, Dr. Wu Jin Kim's biological warfare team had infiltrated the main Vorthack food processing center. His modified bacteria was already spreading through their supply chain, designed to look like natural food poisoning. "How many bases will this affect?" asked his assistant, Miare Lee. "At least 50 installations," Wu Jin replied with cold satisfaction. "The Vorthack will think it's a quality control problem with their food supplies. By the time they figure out the truth, thousands of their soldiers will be too sick to fight." Engineer Myung Choi led a different kind of attack against Vorthack technology. Her team had become experts at hacking alien navigation systems, causing entire fleets to emerge from hyperspace in deadly locations. "Target confirmed," she announced as she watched the Vorthack battle group prepare to jump to hyperspace. "I've modified their coordinates. Instead of arriving at the mining station, they'll come out of hyperspace inside the corona of a red giant star." The alien ships vanished into hyperspace, completely unaware that they were flying directly into a stellar furnace. Myung felt no satisfaction watching them go, only cold determination to make the Vorthack pay for every human life they had taken. The psychological effect on the Vorthack Empire was exactly what the humans had planned. Fear began to spread through their ranks like a disease. Supply convoys started requiring heavy escorts. Outpost commanders demanded additional security. Patrol schedules became irregular and unpredictable. Fleet Admiral Youngwoo Seo monitored these changes from his secret command base hidden in a nebula. Intelligence reports flooded in from across human space, all telling the same story. The Vorthack were getting scared. "Their communication networks are down by 40%, reported intelligence officer Yi-Jin Shin. "They're pulling back from outer territories to protect core systems." "Excellent," Youngwoo replied. "Fear makes them predictable. When they concentrate their forces, they become easier targets for our larger operations." "Sir," said Communications Officer J.E. Park, "we're receiving reports that some Vorthack commanders are requesting permission to retreat from human space entirely." Youngwoo allowed himself a small smile. "Let them run. Every retreat shows their soldiers that humans are not the weak prey they thought we were." The silent war continued for months. Vorthack bases would go offline without explanation. Their patrols would disappear during routine missions. Manufacturing facilities would suffer mysterious explosions that destroyed months of production. Captain Dongwook Choi's mining colony had become a center for sabotage operations. His teams used modified mining equipment to attack Vorthack infrastructure, making each strike look like an industrial accident. "The beauty of this approach," he explained to his officers, "is that they never know if they're dealing with human attack or equipment failure. The uncertainty drives them crazy. But the humans were careful never to take credit for their attacks publicly. Instead, they left only one calling card at each destruction site, a simple message burned into metal or carved into stone. Remember Earth. The Vorthack began to understand that every missing ship, every destroyed base, every dead soldier was connected to their decision to annihilate humanity's homeworld. The message was clear. This was not random violence, but calculated revenge. Dr. Hai-Rin Lee's biological weapons had spread through the Vorthack manufacturing system faster than expected. Reports came in of warships breaking apart in space, their hulls simply dissolving into nothing. "They're calling it Metal Plague," she told Admiral Youngwoo during a secret communication. "Their engineers have no idea what's causing it. Some fleets are afraid to leave port." "Perfect," the Admiral replied. "Let them sit in their bases and worry about when death will come for them. That's exactly what we felt when they destroyed Earth." The silent war had taught the Vorthack Empire something they had never experienced before, the fear of being hunted. For the first time in their history, they were the prey instead of the predators. And the humans were just getting started. 2 years after Earth became a dead rock floating in space, the impossible happened. The Vorthack homeworld cluster detected thousands of human ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. The vessels looked like a giant crescent moon surrounding their most sacred worlds. Supreme Commander Zethkar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. These weren't the broken refugee ships he expected to see. Each human vessel bristled with weapons that looked familiar, Vorhack technology, but somehow improved and made more deadly. "How is this possible?" he whispered to his aide. "Our intelligence report said the Terra species was near extinction." "Sir," his communications officer called out, "incoming transmission from the human fleet." The main screen flickered and showed a human face, weathered, scarred, with eyes as cold as deep space. "This is Admiral Kibium Yoon of the Human Colonial Alliance. We've come to deliver your education." Zethkar felt a chill run through his body. The human's voice carried no emotion, no anger, no hatred, just the calm tone of someone about to complete an unpleasant but necessary task. "I am Supreme Commander Zethkar of the Vorhack Empire," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "What do you want?" "We want you to understand what you taught us," Admiral Kibium said simply. "You showed us that mercy is weakness. You demonstrated that the strong can destroy the weak without consequence. Today we apply those lessons." Zethkar looked at his tactical officers desperately. "Launch all defense fleets. Activate planetary shields. Send emergency signals to all sectors." But nothing happened. The control panels flashed red warning lights, but no ships moved. The planetary defense systems remained silent. Even their communication networks had gone dead. "Sir," his chief engineer reported with panic in his voice, "all systems are failing. Power grids, life support, navigation, weapons, everything is shutting down simultaneously across all worlds." Admiral Kibium's image remained on the screen, watching their confusion with cold patience. "You're wondering how this is possible. Let me explain. For 2 years, we studied every piece of Vorhack technology we could capture. We learned how your ships work, how your computers think, how your power systems function." The human admiral paused, letting the full horror of the situation sink in. "Dr. Jiyoung-han's quantum viruses are currently destroying your power networks. Engineer Kyung-ho, Ryu's logic bombs, are shutting down your life support systems. Every backup system, every emergency protocol, every failsafe, we've corrupted them all." Zethkar watched in growing terror as his mighty empire began to die around him. Across the homeworld cluster, Vorhack cities went dark one by one. Their massive warships drifted powerless in space, their crews trapped inside metal coffins. "This is impossible," Zethkar said desperately. "You're just refugees. Survivors. How could you coordinate something like this?" "You made a fundamental error in your calculations," Admiral Kibium replied. "You thought destroying our homeworld would break us. Instead, it united us. Every human colony, every survivor, every refugee. We all became part of the same weapon pointed at your heart." The truth was even more terrifying than Zethkar could imagine. While the Vorhack celebrated their easy victory over Earth, humans had been preparing their revenge with scientific precision. They had infiltrated Vorhack supply chains, corrupted their computer networks, and planted millions of sleeping viruses in their most critical systems. "The nanobots in your food supplies have been reporting to us for 18 months, the Admiral continued. "The communication updates you've been downloading contain our programs. Even the air recycling systems on your ships now answer to human commands." On the planet below, Vorhack civilians looked up at the sky in confusion as their lights went out. Emergency broadcasts tried to explain what was happening, but the communication networks had been designed by humans months ago to fail at exactly this moment. "Please," Zethkar begged, his pride finally breaking. "We offer unconditional surrender. We'll pay reparations. We'll give you territory, resources, anything you want. Just show mercy." The human admiral's expression didn't change. "Mercy? You want to discuss mercy? Let me tell you what mercy looked like to us. Mercy was 16 billion people who never got a chance to surrender. Mercy was children who died, calling for parents who couldn't save them. Mercy was a planet that became a graveyard because you decided we were inferior." Zethkar realized with growing horror that begging would not work. These humans had learned their lessons too well. "You taught us that the universe belongs to the strong," Admiral Kibium said. You showed us that advanced species can eliminate primitive ones without consequence. You demonstrated that mercy is a luxury only the powerful can afford. The Admiral leaned forward slightly, his cold eyes never blinking. Congratulations. Your education was successful. We learned every lesson you taught us. Across the Vorthak homeworld cluster, the mighty empire that had conquered dozens of star systems was dying not from explosions or battles, but from the simple shutdown of the technology they depended on. Their ships became tombs. Their cities became dark monuments. Their communication networks became silent. The last lesson you taught us, Admiral Kibium said as his image began to fade, is that when you have the power to destroy your enemies completely, you don't negotiate with them. You don't show mercy. You simply erase them from existence. The transmission ended, leaving the Vorthak leadership alone in the darkness of their dying empire, finally understanding what they had created when they decided to annihilate Earth. Humanity had graduated from their course in galactic survival with perfect scores.